Shalom, Laila Tov, Ma Shlomech, Ma Nishma. I'm just making this video because, as is the consistent circumstance in my life, I have nobody to talk to about this, nobody to help. As usual, I am all alone, abandoned, isolated, and neglected. I'm on thin ice with the Hebrew class. They're talking about, might get kicked out. Because I made students uncomfortable. Management was getting complaints. Naturally, they're Israeli, so they don't have the American legal system, right? In the American legal system, due process, the Sixth Amendment, etc., the Fifth Amendment, and all that stuff, I get to know all the accusations against me and confront my accusers. Not the case with these guys, which is fine. I don't expect much from humanity these days, be they Jewish or non-Jewish. And this isn't a moral condemnation on their part, of them. I'm not crapping on them because of what happened. Basically, I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago now. I can't even remember. I got school going on as well, trying to get a degree so I can get a career. We had this exercise where we were supposed to share photos of us with other people at another place. And I have nobody in my life but the dog. I haven't really left this house in over a year. Because humanity is that corrupt. It's so fucked up, dude. What happened to me? There was a Yemeni guy, a guy from Yemen, who made a meme about me when he heard my story. He said, if there's anybody God has abandoned, that God has forgotten about or doesn't care about, with my face. Right, he screenshotted me in the Discord chat. Yeah. Anyway, so the older woman, who acts very man-hungry despite being married, saw the picture of a younger married woman with her husband, her friend, and her friend's husband at a music festival and said, "Ooh, who's the guy with the dreadlocks?" And the girl was like, "Oh, that's my husband." Right? And it kind of didn't bother me at all, but I just didn't appreciate the fact that they were wasting class time sexually objectifying men, acting like a bunch of, word that I probably shouldn't say. Catty women. Yeah, acting like catty women. And, so I typed in the chat, "Oh, blah, 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 so-and-so, it's weird because I didn't even notice your husband there. All I saw was your friend's boobs. There was no other men in the chat." And that caused a big stink. I got in trouble. And I simply said, well, it seems like a double standard. Why is she allowed to sexually objectify women, why is she allowed to sexually objectify men, but I'm not allowed to sexually objectify women? And, so that was my first violation, right? It's okay if they make me uncomfortable because, I'm a guy, so fuck me is the attitude of this course, I think. I could be wrong. But then after that, the instructor held me after class one time. She told me that I'm playing the chat with too many questions about Hebrew, and I'm messaging her about Hebrew, which is weird because she was the one who messaged me first. I was spamming the chat when I did the parasha on Avram, parasha Lech Lecha, and I said, "Oh, Lech Lecha seems like it's the core word of Lalechet and Holech." And she messaged me first, privately, right, and said, "Oh yeah, you're right, this and that." And so I said, okay, she's messaged me, I'm going to message her back, and I messaged her back with questions about Hebrew, and that got me in trouble, because it was on a Friday night. I forgot it was a Friday night in Israel. There's such different time zones. and she was the one who messaged me first, but they're mad at me for private messaging my instructor, even though in all the student study groups they tell you if you have questions, ask your instructor. And the instructor told me that I'm interrupting class too much by asking too many questions because I had modified my behavior to not make jokes in class anymore. It was purely just questions. And so I stopped asking questions of my instructor, and I still got in trouble for it like a month and a half later or something. So then she also told me that the study group instructors said that they were getting complaints, or they were complaining about me or something, making inappropriate jokes and comments that made students uncomfortable. And that's odd because I can't think of much, but one I can think of is one of the course study groups. There was all these women in the chat. Literally, so there's Zoom, and Zoom has a chat, and they started flooding chat with, "Hey girl, how's it going? Oh good, how are you?" Da-da-da-da-da, which is fine, I don't care, but class had started, and the instructor was distracted. You could tell, you could see his face, like, his eyes were reading the chat, and so his brain was, like, arrested. It was stopped because he was involuntarily reading this chat flood of women just being like, and so I simply made one comment: women flooding chat, 3 words, with an emoji laughing. Now, to me, that's no big deal. But I'm going to guess that's why they're also going to kick me out. They might not kick me out. I really want to stay with them. They're pretty decent. I thought they were great, instructors and a great course, but apparently they don't like me. And so that really interests me because there's like no consideration for, what makes me uncomfortable. Like women wasting time in the course, which happened a lot, right? So actually that day, that particular course, lesson that the instructor held me after class, I timed it. She wasted over 15 minutes of the beginning of the class having girl chat with the female students. And nobody ever asked or cared if that made me uncomfortable. So I'm thinking one of the issues is that I don't complain, and all the women complain about me, even though they're worse than me at the very things that I'm getting in trouble for. They're not in trouble. It's weird, right? Maybe I should have, maybe I did, but I forgot perhaps that Jews were so sensitive. I really did. And so it looks like that might be the end of my Hebrew learning. And it's very confusing because when the instructor held me after class, she said very specifically, "You've done nothing wrong. You're just asking too many questions about Hebrew in a Hebrew learning course that you paid for." It's a bit difficult to wrap my head around, basically. I don't understand it. I understand what they say, and I understand, the points they make, and if they're right, they're right. I have the schizophrenia, I have the brain injury, so I probably did make inappropriate comments and make students uncomfortable. So another interesting thing is I told the guy who took the money that I had schizophrenia and a brain injury, and he said, "Oh, that's not going to interfere with classes," and I said, "No, it should be fine." And it has been fine. That's what my instructor told me, is you're not in trouble, you've never done anything wrong. So they're not sympathetic towards my disability at all, which is that's cool, I guess, but it's weird because they're not saying that what I did was crazy or insane. They're saying it's sane, but it's offensive. So it's almost like modern American politics, which is completely mental, right? You can't speak the truth because it's offensive. But I hope I get to continue learning with them. Or not even with them, you know, if they want to be like that, I can't really control their behavior. I just find it so crazy that even happened. But she did tell me, the woman who runs the, you know, who's responsible for all of it. I don't think she was a CEO, but she's up there. She told me that just focus on self-restraint, which I really do my best to do. I really try to be self-controlled. I guess I'll just have to try harder. But it seems really unfair to me that I'm the only one, like I'm on the receiving end of this, but there's no acknowledgement of any wrongdoing on their part, any unfairness, etc. So it's very confusing as well.